So this is the story of how, I guess, this is the story of how me as a dancer moved into urban media art and the journeys that I've found and the excitements that I've found in pursuing further academic studies in this area. This is me, and this is me trying to pose with Asian mum energy with a plant. But I'm a dancer and I also work in urban media art, and that's a link that I have found recently in my practice and something that I definitely am wanting to dedicate more of my life and more of my time into researching. Currently, I'm doing my dissertation in dance's position in urban media art through a master's degree, so I'm finishing that off at the moment. Something that I'm really inspired by is the theories and the examples that we see artists make and contribute towards making playful cities and also smart cities in these futuristic and very exciting installations and examples of urban intervention. So yeah. So this is a collage of some previous work that I've done. It's always been centered around dance's position in urban media art and how we can utilize dance as a form of storytelling to public and in public spaces. Here's just a short video that I put just to, I guess, give an example of something that I've done in the past. So there's a few videos in this presentation, so we'll sit and we'll journey through all of them. But this particular work was made when I was doing a residency with the Centre for Projection Art, which is an organization in Melbourne. And so they provided projectors and great facilities for people who were wanting to expand their practice into projection art. And then I was able to have a residency with them and then develop my practice through them. This work, yeah, moving on. Wonder how I actually go to the next slide. Next, yeah, okay. In the series of works, I've titled it Acts of Holding Dance because when I was doing research for creating this piece, I was reading through a thesis, someone's thesis work who was talking about dance as an ephemeral form of being. And because I did come from a dance practice, this was really an area and interest of me of dance's position in academia. And so in this work, it was saying that dance being ephemeral and ever moving, it is quite, dance is quite a process that embodies mourning, and the sad kind of mourning, not the sunrise mourning, because a particular point of time cannot be returned to by the dancer, even through choreography and planned improvisation. And so coming from listening to or reading this piece of academia, I was thinking, how can we record dance in a very non-abstract way and in a way that was very publicly legible for public art? And so I developed this kind of script-like recording of dance. And so, for example, in this black and white image in the middle, this is a singular recording of a 50-second dance that occurred in one point of time, and I recorded the history of the dance that has passed. And it's interesting when you dissect and when you record and transcribe dance in this way, because you can start to see the habits that the dancers have themselves. So, for example, this dancer in the middle has a habit of spiraling towards his right. And so you can kind of see that in the transcription of the dance that is recorded in the script. And then coming from working with dances like this and also recording myself dance, I started to find interest in perhaps working with break dancers, because I knew that break dancers worked so closely with the floor and worked with such attention to individual technique and power. So what is really interesting is that coming back into the theories of ephemerality, breakdance and breakdancers really embody, I think I just really admire that they spend so much attention into developing their own practice. And so each individual breakdancer has a different and very unique area of technique that they individually work on. So for example, if it's power, footwork, or dynamic, and so recording them in this and transcribing their own dances in this way has been really, really interesting for me. Here's some horizontal prints that have happened with the recording of dance that has passed through time. This was developed with 2 Tasmanian-based dancers in Salamanca Art Centre, which was an art centre that invited me over there to develop this work. And then here are some more examples of building projections. And then luckily, and I'm really thankful that this was able to, oh no, wait, I don't think this video is capable of being shown at the moment, but in this journey of research, I was thinking about how dance can be applied into different spaces, if it was an urban media space, if it was an interior design space, or even if it was a space that was curated for television. And so I was able to get this commission by the CW network to design projections for for the TV iteration of a DC comic book series called Naomi. And I'm not sure if the video is going to work, but maybe I can find a different link and then share screen again. Then I think a really, really unexpectedly exciting turn in my career was when I was able to work with Adidas to install projections for the launch of the Harden Volume 6 signature sneakers. And so this was a project that happened in February 2022. And then I was able to go to Brooklyn and install 5 projection murals around the Barclays Center in Brooklyn to, I guess, generate excitement for the launch of the Harden Volume 6 sneakers. And then as we can watch this, James Harden. This was a video that was put together by the channel called Bleacher Report, who were the people responsible to cover the story. One of the few athletes whose body movements is iconic. His crossover, his step back, his Euro step. I made not only the sneakers strip, but I also made the basketball strip to accentuate James Harden's playing style. My name's Wendy You, and I'm the artist responsible for James Harden's mural. Yeah, that was a short clip, and then there's a clip here too. I'm not sure if it's gonna work, but maybe I can link it to you later so we can watch the videos online together. And then this is what the Harden Volume 6 sneakers look like. And then these are 2 photos that happened on that day to just show you what it looked like on the ground. And then this video is not working too. Okay, never mind, sorry.
We'll have to look at them at another time.
Yeah, I was watching another artist that was featured in these conversation programs, and he was also mentioning NFTs. And this is also a realm that I've been able to sell works through. So I've been able to sell works such as this through platforms such as Foundation, and I'm also represented by an NFT collective, an agency called Arts Matter, and they're based in Sydney, Australia. I'm about to do a drop by them coming up on the 12th of August. I'm not sure if this is the best time in space to, I guess, drop NFTs, because because of the market being so volatile, but we'll see how it goes. This is a similar piece of work that I'm planning on minting as an NFT.
You're a witch. So nice.
Time witch. And then a few works similar to this kind of dynamic and style I will also be minting. These are two breakdancers who are local to Sydney 143 crew. And then the person on the right is a breakdancer who's quite focused on footwork and is quite well known for footwork in Sydney. And then the person on the left is called Duke, and he is going to the Paris 2024 Olympics to represent Australia. So I'm really excited to support his journey through that. And then this is when the story of I guess when the design process and when my design practice went into interior spaces. So this is just a very, very primitive example of the dance designs that I have made being displayed on television screens. But the next iteration for these works in an interior design space will be mapped onto specific features of the interior space to make it a bit more inclusive and more incorporated in that curated interior design space. I don't have photos of that yet, but that'll happen in the next month. So I'll keep in touch about them. And with my work with breakdance and with, I guess, the really, really specific interest that I have with them, and I think it's quite poetic too, and I don't want to be misrepresenting these communities at all, but with the elevation of breakdancers through projection works, it has been quite a poetic link, because breakdance, street dance has often been a facet of dance that has been reserved for the streets. And so utilizing the theories behind urban media art and even things like the histories of mural and graffiti, putting these dancers who have commonly been rejected away from traditional places of dance sharing, such as in theaters and studios, and projecting them into the street is generating a very, very interesting process and story and narrative of, I guess, elevating these amazing athletes within the public eye, which is very glorifying. And because of this angle, I've been able to work with different communities of breakdance breakers and breakdancers in different cities around the world. So for example, this footage here is from a breakdancer in Boston that I was able to film when I was there in February 2022. And then upcoming projections that I have planned is to represent breakdancers from both Boston and Cincinnati, Sydney, and also Hong Kong at the end of the year as well. So I feel very lucky to be able to work with breakdancing and breaking communities around America and Hong Kong too. Mhm. In progression of my works in projection, because I've been working a lot with that waterfall effect and then using that waterfall effect as a communication of dance's qualities, that the qualities of dance has with ephemerality and time constantly moving, and also the processes of dance and dance history constantly moving. Recently I have been, I guess, expanding my repertoire of design into 3D spaces, and so designing in 3D to create anamorphic designs. Also motion capture. What I've been doing with this work is motion capturing breakdance from Olympic breakdancers and then putting them in these 3D spaces. Mm. And then I also work for a tech company, and this is the tech company here. And I think that's the end of the slides that I have.
See all the this is so like peaceful. Really
Yeah,
nice.
I literally didn't want to break the silence because it was so satisfying to watch.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting like relationship with dance and music because the both probably coincided. The invention of both probably was together and at once. With the design, I do have composition that goes with it, but when recording the dances, they'll have dance music and their chosen playlist to dance to, just to make them feel comfortable and make them feel very rhythmic. But then I guess it's not necessarily important if the work is accompanied by sound, because I think visually there's enough phenomena to go about feeling the piece, as well as, so for example, this middle image here, I think it would be quite impossible to accompany this with sound, and then the sound needing to compete with the noise of the traffic and the noise of the city. But for installations such as this top right one here, that one was accompanied by live musicians. So I guess the sound component in the projection wasn't necessarily necessary. Similar with this bottom right one as well. So yeah, I think that because the rhythm of the dance that we see visually is already communicative and invoking of such phenomena, that adding sound and accompanying this visual image with sound, or even like heightening the visual communications or like the visual powers with sound, hasn't necessarily been
I think there's more strength in the fact that it doesn't have the sound, because in some ways when I was watching it there was almost, and I don't know if anyone else felt the same way, I almost was imagining what the sound would be in my own mind. I was almost working out the rhythm or the beat of the track that they may be listening to when performing the movement. It was really interesting. I think the question I was going to ask is, there's obviously a very identifiable aesthetic that runs through, especially in this kind of like waterfall style effect, and the one with you, I think it was you lying on the bed and connecting the two kind of like images together. How did you end up? How did you end up landing on that particular type of aesthetic or expression? And were there a number of other kind of aesthetic directions that you had explored, potentially landed on, and deviated, or not deviated, moved on from, that didn't feel as it didn't quite hit home as much as these do? Because the aesthetic is very, like, it's beautiful, and it definitely evokes the qualities of movement and dance. Was it something just, it landed there and it felt natural, or was it a progress or like a process of trying to find this kind of this visual representation of that?
Yeah, it was a process of trying to find something that was important word legible to people in public spaces. So, for example, this work being installed in public spaces and intended for public spaces, it needed to have a quality that was not going to be exclusive to people who weren't coming into it without a postmodern
Yeah.
background or, philosophical view into viewing art. And so something with like art, and especially, which is why I'm interested in pursuing dance's position in urban media art, is I guess like dance sharing in traditional spaces of dance sharing, such as theater spaces. It's not necessarily accessible to everybody, or even to people who, for example, aren't coming into it with a prehistoric interest in dance. So if you bring dance into urban spaces, it needs to be understandable by just a passerby viewer, and then this waterfall effect is quite legible to anyone who does experience it, because it makes sense. It's just the recording of a dance that has passed, and it doesn't exclude viewers who might not understand the abstract
Yeah.
semiologies and symbols in image. Something that I'm trying to work on at the moment, and I have the program already figured out of live capture. So camera input, and then this kind of waterfall effect is just live rendered and then projected. But then that's depending on if the city council has enough funding and patience to install these kind of systems, because obviously the live component would require more resources from the commission. So these works so far in the image that I'm showing you, it's all video files, which is quite convenient and quite easy to just share to different schools. However, something that I'm really trying to, I guess, generate interest in and generate money in is to have more interaction, and like to build installations that have more of an interactive element with pedestrian people in an activation zone around the projection installation. So that's something that I would like to.
Yeah, if I may, what is your, you may have said it, but what is your own background with dancing?
I came from like a very, very heavy ballet training for many years, and then my genetics couldn't
Gotcha.
keep up. And then I went through a process of training in postmodern and modern dance. I don't really want to say contemporary, because it really is a little bit removed from contemporary, but postmodern dance.
Gotcha. Fair. And how did the connection came to like breakdance? Was there a particular moment in time where you dived into the scene, or?
I think it came from dance, tech, and then breakdance, because I started learning how to program and code when I was 19, and then coming out of university and into the big bad world of dance employment, I just was very uninspired at what was going on, and I thought it was so boring. I just thought that there was more excitement with the combination of dance and tech, and dance and digital media. So currently the works that have been successful for me and the ones that have been funded are these works that are just a video file, because they're convenient, they're shareable, and they're very transactionable, I guess. But I'm able to make installations that are a bit more, interactive with pedestrian activators, and just a bit more complex system rather than just a video file. But we'll see how taking those off the ground will go. But so far these have been working very well for me, and I'm not trying to demise the universe. I mean, they're still very valuable.
Are you? Can I guess that maybe the dancing shoes have now been hung up, or is there still a future of dance kind of coming?
Yeah, It's so sad. I know. Dance at the moment in my life hasn't been taking, I mean, hasn't been a very too much. Also because because of COVID and the pandemic and everything, that's when these works started to launch off with urban media art. When I was working in the residency program in Melbourne, the director for this company was saying that as a tactic to try to get people out of their homes and back into society, there were certain city councils were funding projection works as a form of getting people back into the outdoor dining scene. And so what they did find was that these urban media interventions and installations of digital art was quite successful in bringing people out and prolonging their stay out about town and about the dining strips, and bringing business back into these businesses. So that was great. And also I guess the question of from dance into breakdance, it was really just a process of me thinking, hey, breakdancers are really, really cool, and I've never had the opportunity to work with them. So I'm going to ask this one person. And then this one person was called Rachel Gunn, and she's going to the Olympics to represent Australia. And at the moment, our relationship has blossomed so much that I'm cat sitting for her right now. While she competes with her partner Sam Free, who is her trainer that she's bringing to the Olympics as well. Actually, wait, here's Sam Free on the right over here. This is Rachel Gunn and Sam Free are dynamic duo who are creating the Sydney scene of breakdance.
It was the first time, right? So Paris 2024 is the first time that breakdance is being brought to the Olympics.
Yeah, and it's so exciting. I would just love to try to do something, in preparation and to generate excitement for breakdance to be included in the Olympics. I'm not sure about the UK or anywhere else, but in Australia, the inclusion of breakdance in the Olympics committee has been quite there's just been quite a large opposition to it. I mean, people don't see it as a sport that should be recognized by the Olympic Committee, and so making these works, we want to be elevating these athletes.
I think there's been pushback on lots of sports. I think wasn't skateboarding one of them at some point. I think that skateboarding was introduced into the Olympics. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think it was. I have one last question actually. So you've obviously focused on human movement and dance. Is there an interest in the broader kind of dynamics of movement, like within nature or within the capture of growth or the animal world, or just generally within the kind of because this kind of aesthetic and treatment, as you nicely put it, as it's capturing almost like the history or the previous, or what the motion, or the previous movements. Had you ever thought about moving into other medium, or is it the kind of the notion of dance that really kind of holds us all together?
I think you posing questions and then you close off by answering them, because it really is the latter part of your speech was my opinion precisely, because I have thought about using this process of design in maybe things like a wasp or a millipede of some kind, but I think that the human element to it and the empathy that we as viewers have towards a dancing figure, and also dance being such a universal human element, it's quite recognizable, and there's just once again so much empathy in the dancing image and the corporeal image. So that's why I've retained the image of the recognizable human in these projections.
Sorry for answering the question.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who's got any questions?
I have a question. I was going to ask if you know, depending on the subject and what it is that you're trying to create, do you, and I suppose like the difference between working with someone like James Harden compared to like a break dancer, like how much you choreograph the scene and the dances and the movements they're creating compared to letting them do their thing and you create the work around what they're giving you almost? Like, do you have a preconception of the like that you choreographed before, or do you just let them do their thing?
Well, yeah, such like a very insightful question to have received. It's very exciting because the commission brief of the Adidas project was to highlight James Harden as a very unique player or a very unique athlete, and also to highlight basketball as a sport that has and shares a lot of similar qualities and affiliations with dance. And so because I was talking about how capturing the dances in the script, like where you can really highlight the quality of the movers, that's a quality that we wanted to bring into the Adidas project. We wanted to highlight James Harden as like a very unique player who had signature moves such as the step back, the Eurostep, and the other one.
Crossover, I believe.
Yeah. So in directing both the Adidas project and other projects with dancers, because there's such an attention in highlighting the individual practices of each type of dancer and each individual dancer, I've been adopting a process that I've called soft choreography. So I give them parameters to work in, but ultimately the main principle of these works entirely is to capture the individual practice of each dancer.
With the projection mapping you do you have like a desired location you would love to like sort of share this type of work within?
A desired location, like
yeah,
dream.
like a spot, I don't know, like a spot that you wish to like celebrate and just, I don't know, project that your visuals onto.
I'd love to project
Question. Water would be good.
Yeah, water would be beautiful.
Wow, water would be very nice. I think there's just so many beautiful buildings out there that have such a clean facade for projection mapping.
Yeah.
This building here was actually built with the intention of being mapped by projection. I was speaking to the architect who was on the team in planning this precinct, and because the offices that was going to host the projection company was right opposite the courtyard, they built this, it's a lift shaft, or they built this part of the lift shaft to be exactly perpendicular to the offices, so that the, I guess, projector just was very conveniently, can be convenient to this wall. I have desires and deep intentions to create these works in a specific experience, and what's it called? Like an infinity room experience. And so, for example, having a reflective flooring and then mapping these projections on the wall that would, I guess, relay that image into the wall and create that infinity quality. That's something that I would be really, really ambitious to try to make happen.
Amazing.
Staying the attention that I've received. Thanks so much for it.
Honestly, it's our pleasure. Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.